What an exciting day, right? Bitcoin 89, $90,000. Uh, and aside from the junkies that are, always kind of paying attention to the market, it kind of feels like it's just kind of weird, right? It's a different vibe. It really does. I put a video up just a few days ago, honestly, when we were coming up to. Actually, we were above the all-time high. We were sitting at 77,000, and I was kind of sharing that it didn't really feel it just was, the vibe. Once again, vibes or whatever. It's obviously a good sentiment tester, but it felt like there was just kind of nothing, nobody really around almost. When Bitcoin was at the all-time high the other day at 77 or higher then. But as soon as the altcoins start moving, obviously, is when everybody gets kind of excited and interested. Obviously, people are probably making or trying to make the most out of the altcoins. So, what is the market gearing up to do, at least in my opinion? Kind of start kind of covering that, ranged out for so long. Let me see if I get this in here right. Literally what a crazy range that this was, right? And depending on how anybody was looking at it, right, you could have had a huge bull flag, big major, sweep of the low here, back test of 50K, back test of this high, however you wanted to view it. I kind of, in August was pointing out how a simple way at the time too. Obviously, there's a lot of smaller moves along the way, but that just when you have a really strong uptrend, generally you only get a pretty shallow pullback. So something, instead of looking for the gold pocket, which you'll hear many people talk about, which is when looking at a Fibonacci retracement, right? For example, we'll just pull this from the 15K low to the current high, right? The gold pocket, which is of this move, technically 61 to 65%, of that area, a pullback. A lot of times it's where you'll look for just a general pullback, a really healthy correction in any asset, right? Stocks, crypto, whatever. But a lot of times when you have a really strong trend, you only get a pullback to the 0.382, right? So when we were trading up in this region, right, we topped out at the beginning of the year before we came down to that 48K. If you go ahead and click on that 382, right, that's generally where we came down to. We kind of wicked through it, obviously took out the 50K, kind of a rounded number. Probably stopped out a lot of people that were, moving up their stop losses if they had one or anything like that. Obviously scaring, the the lights out of most too, when you start to get that. On top of the news at the time was pretty rough, right? But yeah, at the end of the day, just looking at it data-wise, came down, back tested this 382 area where you'd look for continuation off of a strong uptrend. Same thing happened right here, right? This, when we were living in this time period right here, this was a 382 back test. We continued up. This was a 382 back test. We continued up. This was a 382 back test, and we continued up. And then now for the overall move, 382 back test, continue up, right? So, so far, that's kind of where we're at. Like I said, any others may look at it with other confluences and what have you, right? So that's kind of where we were with Bitcoin there. From there, I was looking for a potential high time frame pattern that maybe have completed around this region here for a potential pullback. But we'll see, right? So otherwise, though, 90K, big stuff. And realistically, if we keep pushing on from here, 100, it's not even doesn't sound that crazy even to say 100,000, right? But 100,000, 103,000 would be really the next major area if we really just start pushing up above like 91,000, really. So for me, I'm going to be paying attention up here. I do think we'll, probably get a little bit of a range up here. I guess, once again, nobody truly knows, but, after a big move like this, right, you might get a little bit of just kind of slow cool down up here, maybe a little ranging action. And then ideally, we'd look for the alts to kind of get their push up, right? Excuse me. If Bitcoin goes to 73,000, could alts bleed? Yeah, I would say that there's a big likelihood that would occur, right? Because you're talking 16% pullback, and unfortunately, we're in a period where Bitcoin kind of stole the show. We had this huge move up. The altcoins, some of them are moving, obviously Dogecoin, like others, but a lot aren't. And it's one of those times where it's like it can be frustrating because Bitcoin gets this really nice move up, and you're thinking like all the altcoins should come with it. And I think we have a chance where I think short term, and I'll get to Ethereum, which is like kind of the gauge on that. to get some movements continuing from here for a bit. But yeah, if we do get a pullback on Bitcoin back to that previous all-time high, to answer Ariel's question, you got to anticipate that the alts are going to get hurt, unfortunately, right? So it's just, if we do get that pullback, that's kind of one of those times where if anybody's been waiting for an entry, or looking for a red day, that's probably going to offer it. You could also get one of those time periods where Bitcoin actually pulls back, but then the money that, people basically take profits from Bitcoin and they put them into alts, right? So sometimes that we see that. So it doesn't always mean that the altcoins have to bleed if Bitcoin starts coming back down. That's one of the most ideal situations there, because essentially that would mean Bitcoin dominance comes down, right? Bitcoin's price would come down a little bit with it, but then the altcoins would see a little move up there, right? But yeah, if we see a pullback to that region, it probably wouldn't be the best from like today's pricing, right? For the altcoins, you'll probably get a little hit. ETH is one that I'm trying to see. I'm kind of trying to gauge and see how we react in this next little area up here, or potentially if we were hitting a wall right here also, right? So if you do look at ETH as just a little local run up to a local gold pocket, right? So what we were just covering just a little bit ago, from the swing high to the swing low, we're pretty much claiming that region at the moment. And for me, I'm really been targeting this box, the 35 to 3,800. Pretty well since all the way back here with the September and the August lows, right? Had a potential bat pattern, right, that ends in this little region with a couple of key levels as confluence. So for me, that's where I'm looking for ETH to kind of come up to. And this is unfortunately a bearish pattern if completed. And once again, you can't marry this. It's just, something to kind of be aware of, to see if we do get a reaction up here. You got a potential for this, pattern to play out. And realistically, we could see a pullback back down to like, if this is the play out, this would be, back down to like the 382. And then the B point, and then potentially the gold pocket, right? If you get that push up and back test here, really wouldn't be super bad, too bad of a move. But look, once again, we're in the conditions where, then we're at $90,000 Bitcoin today, and that's exciting today. But tomorrow, if we pulled back to 80, which is where we started the week and had a huge run, and just in general, like the fact that you have to even fear a pullback to $73,000. Is interesting, but it's just that's the world we're always going to be in, right? You always have to fear. You don't necessarily have to fear. Obviously, it depends on your investment strategy. But if the market pulls back, it's that's just part of it. But for me, I'm looking for ETH to kind of push up. So Bitcoin's made it to a key region, in my opinion. I was looking for 85 to 90K. All right, so we're going to see how we do up in that area. Let me take a quick look at it once again, right? So out of all this here, once again, I just put up a little video going over more of this, but potential for this harmonic pattern, which is a sequence of Fibonacci's, and once again, it's not a guarantee. This could totally still continue on from here and be invalidated. It's just something that for me, I'm looking at this and I'm not trying to. I'm positioned from way lower, so for me, if we even do see a pullback all the way back to the old all-time high where we were 3 days ago, that won't hurt me, but I know it will affect others, and kind of frighten people, which it shouldn't, because it's one of those times where, like, when you do see a red day, if you see it, that's when you want to look to get in. But anyways, this boxed area up here was a big key region I've been looking for, and we hit that today, right? So, and we pretty much stopped on a dime right there, so it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Targets for this, if we were to start basically pulling back, right, are same thing. It's basically down to 382. I imagine we probably would back test the previous all-time high, and then really would have to pay attention here, because if we lose that, then it's the gold pocket or the B point. So that would be a pretty sizable drop if you get it, but once again, no guarantee we do. Just something I'm paying attention for. And also, like I said, really, even if you see something like this, it might be a while before we even do get a pullback, right? So you might just range around up here, which would be ideal for the alts. But I do want to point out a couple things of confluence of what we are doing right here, right? So you got Bitcoin, in my opinion, at a very big region. You're at a nice rounded number, 90K. You'd front run 100,000. I'm sure many people are potentially getting excited. Maybe people are even buying Bitcoin at $90,000, which is wild to me. But there's a whole crew out there that still thinks that you're very early at 90K, which you could be, but definitely not early today, right? Like a couple weeks back is when you would have been a little bit earlier, 2 years ago, stuff like that. But I digress. The three things I'm looking at right now that indicate a potential, and that's all I'm putting out there. Once again, I'm pretty bullish on this market, the altcoins, having an altcoin season coming up soon, but the reasons that I could see a pullback, and if anybody's waiting for that, and the reason why, or the technical reason why we could see it, is this is one, right? So this is a pretty valid pattern at the moment, right? Pushing up past 91, and start closing dailies above there, I'd probably start to say we probably just push up, and from here, $103,000 is pretty much the next major target, in my opinion, and that's basically the 1618 Fibonacci extension from the old all-time high to the $15,000 low, and that puts you up there like 103, right? 102, 103, 100, whatever. But from here, what do we got, right? So we've got big impulse, nice, quick, exciting move. Everybody's either pretty excited or, definitely full of FOMO. And if you see a move like this, that could really allow the altcoins to move for a few more days, right? And when we see the altcoins moving for days on end and Bitcoin maybe holds 80K, 85K, people start to get impatient, and they don't want to miss the move higher if you're going to get it. And I'm not saying we get a pullback, but that's just how, for me, I'm trying to manage risk and what I'd be looking for. So there's three things right now. Bitcoin is one of them. The second one will be if we push up on ETH and Bitcoin does not go higher, right? So if we get a little move on ETH and Bitcoin stays still or even gets a little pullback from where we are now, and this region gets tagged on ETH, once again, this is, sets up a pretty good pullback. Both of these targets, this one, the 382 and that gold pocket, if you were to see it, are in line with Bitcoin pulling back to the 382 and the gold pocket if we're going to get it. So that's two things that kind of line up with a potential pullback, and it might not be tomorrow, it might not be today. We could still see some really nice days ahead of us, like I said, where you get people really excited, or like FOMO kicks in hard, right? Where people are just seeing, if you start seeing like things like Quant or XRP start popping, man, like people, really start to get anxious, and, they start to look back on 2020 and, Bitcoin broke that all-time high and at December time, right? And it cracked 20K for the real time. And we did pretty much a similar thing where, like, in 2020, we came up to the all-time high, and then you got a pretty decent little rejection, and then you hit it again and got a rejection, and you hit it again, and you finally broke through, and it just never came back. Not never came back, but took a while before it came back, right? And pretty much just 3x from there. I don't necessarily know if we're going to see that, but just like I said, lining up some things, 35 to 3,800 for ETH is the next major target zone for me. That could maybe set up a little pullback, right, back to like 3K, which, once again, scary target today, an amazing target yesterday, right? Just depends on when and how you're treating everything. But that's two things that I'm kind of noting at the moment. And then the third one is in the stock market. So today, the SPY, while Bitcoin made this huge move, and granted, there's an argument both sides, because the SP, and this is the ETF that basically runs off the S&P 500, and while Bitcoin just rocketed up 10 grand almost today, or maybe almost 10 grand, whatever it was, S&P 500 flatline, right? Barely budged. So it's interesting to me because, once again, if you're in the Discord or anything like that, Twitter, or I can't remember if I put it on here or not, there's a potential setup here as well, which, like I said, these aren't perfect. It's not guaranteed. It's just times when, when anybody's like walking into something is like, oh, should I buy today? And it's like, well, there's probably a better risk that it gets a pullback. Could it just blow through? Absolutely. But the SPY also has a pretty decent little setup that it came into on Friday, about $600. And target of this is same thing, back to the 382. Come down, take these lows right here that were just from the 4th, a week ago. And then there's a couple of things stacked up here. So will we see it? Time will tell. It's just another thing that kind of lines up. So right now you kind of got Bitcoin. Is it hitting a wall? Not necessarily. I mean, we just hit 90,000 like 6 hours ago. So cooling off for even a few hours is normal, but it's sitting at 89 right now as we sit. But that could potentially be hitting a little bit of an area of resistance. The SPY is hitting, and once again, these are not resistances as far as previous. These are potential new resistances that you're making as we're expanding into price discovery, basically. This is not a big move on the SPY either, right? This is like 6%. However, that would be enough of a move for everybody to get excited in the wrong way. So you got Bitcoin kind of hitting that level, SPY's chilling at this region, and if ETH pushes up into this region, which sometimes we'll see when Bitcoin kind of has that move, you kind of see the funds kind of transition into ETH and the other altcoins, and you get these couple days of an altcoin rally. Sometimes they progress into more than that, but yeah, I could see ETH kind of pushing up still for a little bit. But if Bitcoin doesn't budge from there, the SPY doesn't budge, and ETH comes into this region and starts to get a rejection, it's like a little perfect setup, in my opinion, where we might see a pullback. So enough about that. So that's just where we are, and I'm putting that out just as a cautionary deal, right? Like I said, I'm not trying to point out like, oh, this is going to be a huge reversal or anything like that, and we could very well just keep going up. So great day in the markets, in my opinion. The altcoins have been some performing well, some not so well, right? So Solana is on its way basically back to the all-time high at 260. Sitting down here, I'm gonna just read this real quick. Sorry, sitting about 220. All right, and 202 is the last major area I was looking for. In between there, it's pretty much just the all-time high. So we'll see how we kind of react up here. Gonna definitely cover Dogecoin here as well. Let's go ahead and do it now. Doge was just a missile. Really nice little downtrend right here, just stair stepping on its way. Came up September's monthly pivot, which was the average target for the month of September, and then just ever since just been a stair step all the way up. Had some key levels here, and it's just been blowing through. Put in an update earlier in the Discord that realistically, as long as we're holding this 31 cents, it's 50 cents is pretty much the next major area, right? So and so far it's just pretty much going straight there. So pretty incredible stuff. It's about a 200% move, I think, over 400% move since the lows back in August. So that's interesting. And all-time high is only another 100% away. I imagine we'll probably see some potential little pullbacks along the way here, that 47 to 50 cent region as well, and then from there we'll see how things progress. 70 cents is the all-time high. You heard the last week of November is red, but who knows? The last week of November, it's always so hard to nail down exacts. I haven't really looked into like week by weeks or anything like that. Obviously Q4 is pretty notorious for being pretty good, and even like you walked in October and we had I think we had 10 days of downside. We were looking for that ABC correction on Bitcoin right to that 59K, which was literally the exact low. Unfortunately, I was not at the desk when we hit it, but it was all good. But yeah, this random side note here, right? Started October, got a little pullback, ABC correction before we continued the uptrend. Now, as far as looking at the end of November, one thing I would say, it just in line with that, just kind of randomly, is that for me, I've been timing the ETH move to this region to be around the 21st of November. All right, so like another 10 days, so it might come early. The Bitcoin pattern completed very early. But if we do still a pullback, like you said, it might be around that 3rd, 4th, or the last week of the month there. Let me check the near price. Yes, so near is near and dear. So depending on how you want to look at near, same thing once again, right? It depends on how if you're analyzing things, if you're trading, or if you're looking at patterns, horizontals, whatever it is. Regardless, for me, the next major thing is I want to see this quarterly average, which is the average for the quarter. I believe it was earlier this year. Regardless, it's right above all these highs. It's just a simple support resistance flip as well. I'd like to see that flipped, and then we've got this region right here back at 720, which is where I sold off a good amount of my needs. So I've been, me and the quarterly open guy, T-Bone, we've been scooping up near for a couple of years, basically ever since like 112 area, and Targeted the $7 area, which I think it was a little. Well, we went to 9, but I sold off like half of my position at the yearly pivot earlier this year, and then bought back around this like $4 ish area, looking for that next move up, right? So quarterly level here, we got a quarterly naked point of control as well, which is a volume target just above us here. All right, these levels are really well respected, and from here, you could almost just throw a simple bull flag on this if that's how you want to look at it as well. Maybe getting a little breakout there. Regardless, this $6 is what I want to see flipped for that. And then ultimately, near term, I'm targeting up to these regions here. Near term, get it? And then after that, if the good Lord allows it, up to about 32 would be, sounds like a crazy jump from here, but I'll take it level by level as we go. But just as a general overview, that's kind of still remains the next targets in near term. And when I say near term, like get it, near term, couple months to weeks, whatever, weeks to months. All right, just a really quick overview once again for anybody joining new. Right, Bitcoin, huge range, right? We're all pretty familiar with that. The 48K level was pretty much a back test, not even a back test, I'm sorry, a support bounce essentially of the overall 38.2, right? 0.382 Fibonacci retracement, which is generally the area we come down to for support and look for a continuation in a really strong uptrend. Had a really nice reaction there. Had a few weeks to kind of, depict it. And that is exactly what we've gotten. From there, we grew into a potential. So that's the key word, right? So I'm just trying to identify some key regions, especially while we're coming into, price discovery mode where there's really no true blue areas above us, right? So one thing I guess we could look at, let's just see real quick, is let's do a trend-based fib extension from COVID low, last high, this low here, right? That 80,900 was one that I was pointing out, or give or take, I guess. And let's just kick on the 1272. So that's just above us. So, when looking for like that next, if you're looking in just a simple, Fibonacci world, you've got the 1272 on a trend base coming in at $98,000. All right. And then, of course, like I said, the 1618. Right, so just like you got the gold pocket at the 0.618, there's a 100% increase off of that, and generally that's where you'll hit the brakes as well. So if you just continue from here, that 1618 is just above at about 102. Personally, I can't imagine we go straight to 100K, but I've been wrong before, so we'll see how that one kind of plays out. But yeah, for me, I'm looking more so on the side of potential pullback and where we could go and why, right? So, and then obviously that's going to have implications for the whole market. This is a potential keyword, potential, not married to this, not saying this is a guarantee, but just pointing out that this is something that makes sense, which is a harmonic pattern, right? And this is a sequence of Fibonacci's, essentially derived off this 1618 extension right here, expansion. And if you start to reject from here, the targets are pretty simple, right? It's back to the 0.382, which is 75,000. We got our previous all-time high, which wouldn't be unheard of to come back and back test. Even though I know multiple people would love to have that, maybe we don't. Maybe we just rock it up to that $100,000 target. But either way, if we start to range around right here, something I'm looking for the altcoins, maybe get a little bit more upside. But overall, the ideal area, right? And that's really what I'm trying to put out there is that, technical analysis as a whole, I can't really predict anything. I'm not trying to predict anything. I'm just trying to position myself in the best way that, I can see fit. And after you see an impulse move like this, the higher risk of it just pulling back is higher than it just continuing up, right? So that's just something we need to look for, especially when you can make a case for, what we're running into. So a couple things here, potential pattern that not many would probably see, right? You've also got 90K perfect, rounded number, psychological number met. Most people are waiting for 100, right? So this would front run that, bring it on back, all kinds of things like that. So as far as what we could see from here is when you get a big move like this up, and a really good example of this. Let me turn this off, so just so you can see some real time or some past experience of it, was when we traded up to 70, basically the all-time high earlier this year, right? So I was looking for a similar situation, just trying to identify key regions that maybe not many others were looking for. So we had this pattern right here, all right, and it completed in this region. But look at what we did up here. And first of all, so the targets of this, same thing, 3 pretty specific targets. You can see we met them really nicely. Wick straight 2, and then finally, boom, right there. This took 6 weeks, mind you, to play out. So something like what we have now could also do the same thing. I'm not saying if we get a big reversal, it's going to be tomorrow. But also, what did we do up here? When this was completed, look what we did, right? You got a nice range for a bit, all right? Now, what that does is that it creates FOMO, all right? Because if we stay up in a region like this, and at the time this was what, 70K, 69, 70, 69, 66, 70, 70, 70. But what did all the altcoins do right here? They ran it up, right? This was when Ethereum's ETF was about to get listed, or news of it was getting listed, and then it, whatever, got approved, whatever the case may be. News was super exciting right here. And then we came down, super technical moves, no news needed. And that's what potentially could happen now, right? So I just want to point that out, that had a big pattern, had a nice little range. This was 21st of May to June 6th. So that was 3 weeks before we actually broke down. All right, so that's just something I just want to kind of point out, because you can see something similar up here, right? If this pattern is correct or does start to play out, potentially we kind of range around for 2-3 weeks. Someone had mentioned earlier that the last week of November is generally red, right? I mean, that would be on par. Maybe we just range around up here for 2 weeks, and the last week of November we get a pullback. I'm once again not trying to predict it. I'm just trying to point out things that we have in the cards here, right? So very bullish from all the lows. All right, so I don't have any Bitcoin actually at the moment. I'm really well positioned in Ethereum and the altcoins. And this move right here, we came down, was a huge target for me on Ethereum. All right, so I was targeting from 4K, 2100 on ETH, which was giving me more of a bearish outlook, on Bitcoin at the time, and that's why I really was able to, heavily identify this pattern up here. And also why I was able to really take a look at these 2 lows right here and kind of determine if we were going to get a push up. Now, this wasn't the original thing I was looking for. I was looking for 78K from here, and then from there, we could possibly grow into this, and that's what we did. So just kind of managing as we go, right, which is not the easiest sometimes, right? Because once again, looking back on this the thing I just showed you, hindsight, oh cool, looks super simple. Thing hit, played out, came down all 3 targets. It's not that easy to do when you're living it live, right? And the hype is big, and everything and everyone around you is, you're getting all the good news coming at you from all angles, just like you're going to get all the bad news coming at you from all angles at the lows, right? So to answer that person that just came in and said, where are we heading, or whatever the case may be, I just want to kind of go over this again. Obviously, we could just jet up out of here into 100, but I'm pointing out that we are in a major area that I pointed out in Discord as well, right? Even though I was looking for a potential pullback around that 78, I noted that 90K, 85 to 90 was probably the next major area that we would hit before we get a decent pullback, right? Anybody's been waiting on a pullback. It might be coming from out of this region, but like I said, it also might take a few weeks. If we get Sui's coming into a major target as far as from the entry areas that I'd given in the Discord. All right, so this and this were 2. I actually did not buy this one personally, but I did buy at the range low when we got back into the range. And yeah, since then, and once again, those were on those August 5th, 6th pullbacks way back, feels like way back in the day. But some simple targets out of that was just to rotate the range, right? Meaning rotate high to low, low to high in this case. You had a nice quarterly level at the time was untapped. So that was the next major target here, flipped it. And then we are on our way now to that 1618 $3.40 region. So does it have to stop there? Not at all. But that is, in the sense of looking at something where it's like, oh, is this a good time to buy? I would say on a scale of risk management, it's not. You're looking at coming right into resistance. If you've purchased, if you're holding this asset, this is an area where you might consider. And this is, once again, everything I say is based on how I would treat this. I don't know your situation. I don't know when you entered something, how you entered, if you have leverage, which I don't suggest with any altcoin. I just don't think it's necessary. Granted, I know everybody wants that quick, fast money, but without any leverage, if planned out and properly executed, this is a 600% move, and you didn't have to lose any sleep, not having any leverage attached to this. Now it's from the 47-cent entry. From where I entered was 56, almost 500%, right? So once again, talking on that level is, this could be a potential area for a pullback. What's that pullback look like? I mean, it could be as simple as, local gold pocket, which is back to 223, which is actually a big ass pullback. So, these regions right here, maybe even a 382, 20%, 30%, like those two just look so small after this huge move up, but that's a big reality, right? On a super local, just this last swing low to this swing high. And once again, just looking at the most simple thing is that I'm just taking this little chunk of price action. And if I was to cut this up, and this would be 100%, right? You just went from 0 and you went to 100. And I'm saying I'm going to pull that back 30% of this, not 30% of all this. That's where we'd come back down to, and it'd be a 24% pullback. This one would be a 40% pullback. Like, things like that are just, you run the risk of walking into that right now if you're entering new. If you're not, if you're in from lower, great. Someone like myself, even if we get that pullback, would it suck to not, sell everything up here and buy back 40% lower for sure. I'm not going to try to catch every single, move. This is a more mid to long-term play for me. But once again, however you're managing yourself, you just have to figure out what you want to try to go for, right? So, because this could very well do one of those, Maddox, Solanas, flip this and just keep going to the next region. So, is it interesting to note that we're coming into a key target, as Bitcoin's potentially at a key target, as Ethereum is just a little bit away from a key target, and the SPY S&P 500 is sitting at a key target too. So, do I think the Bitcoin will hit the 65K golden pocket? It's a really, really tough call. I think there's a case for it, and I know it goes. And the thing that most people would argue with that about is that I think everybody gets really wrapped up. And I used to be one of these people, right? I used to be the 4-year cycle addiction. I targeted 200K back in 2021. Really heavily, like it was like not gonna not happen. So coming from all the experience I have now and like just looking at things a little differently, saying that we would come back down for Bitcoin, just to answer this question really quickly. Right, we just had a huge move, and you would think we're just going to continue up, and we very well may. However, like I said, it really depends on if we're going to flip this, 90K. If we get into this $91,000 area, like I said, I think that it's probably going to continue up to maybe that 98 to 100. But at the moment, there is a setup, which I've just covered. And it would be something that if you're going to try, and I wouldn't even really short, right? I'm not like, once again, if I'm just putting out, if I was talking to my good friend from high school that's asking me, hey, what's going on with Bitcoin? How should I approach this? I'm not going to recommend anybody comes in and shorts here. I'm not going to be looking for a short here personally. And if I do, it's not going to be anything of note. Like, once again, I'm in from lower. I'm still targeting higher. But short term, if we see the pullback, it would make technical sense. And you'd have to kind of manage that along the way. And what that means is that, if you are going to try to short it, the shorts have been getting smacked. Even myself, I've gotten stopped out of quite a few just small term, short-term shorts, but with really tight invalidations, right? So not looking to short this entire rise. I've looked for some key levels, and they just continue to get flipped, right? So more so, I'm in my spot bags from lower, right? Just my bags are packed, and I'm chilling. But if I'm looking for that opportunity or trying to figure out how to manage this down the way, I would say if we get a rejection here, I would really pay attention to this. But if we start to lose that, that's when you have to kind of say, all right, Now we can see this, and yes, I mean this is a very at the moment this is a very valid target, which is right in line actually with the B point. Um, you got this golden pocket right here, and then you have there's a couple other things, we won't get too much into it, but yeah, I mean it's definitely on the table. And if I was someone who was just looking for that next opportunity to buy, if I had to say I had two zones or three zones where it's like, all right, Bitcoin comes down to these levels right now, that's where I'm looking to get in, whether it's Bitcoin or the altcoins. And I treat Bitcoin as my parameter, or my gauge for my barometer, I guess you'd say, the gauge for the altcoins. Like sometimes I don't even have to have a chart built for an altcoin. It's, when we came down to here, like I said, Bitcoin hit 48,000, Ethereum hit 2,100, which was my target. I went across through 3 or 4 different altcoins, and I just bought up knowing that we were at potentially a key level for Bitcoin. And if we get a bounce out of Bitcoin, the altcoins would bounce. Same thing could be, apply here, where I know that most people aren't interested in buying Bitcoin or trading Bitcoin, that, the average person at the moment, right? It's more so we're paying attention to Bitcoin. You have to know what Bitcoin, or try to gauge what Bitcoin is going to do to get that pulse on the market. Because if Bitcoin pulls back 15%, obviously the altcoins are going to probably double that. So yeah, the two areas I'd say are ideal entries that we may not get, but if you do, that's when I'm going to be prepared for. I'm not going to be panicking. I'm not going to be looking to the news to wonder why the market is dumping. If you get it, these two would be the zones, right? That basically that previous all-time high up to 75, and this would be the bigger one, right? So 65K would be where I'd look to. Now, I bring this up in the sense of like why that's kind of a wild idea to many people, is because many will look at this as, oh, you broke the previous all-time high, if we've never came back below it, all that kind of stuff, right? And while that's the case, it's just something that you'll have to deal with if it comes. If you look at other assets, stock market especially, it's a normal occurrence. And not even just stock market, even other alts. I know you haven't seen it on Bitcoin. That's why most people would kind of argue that, but it's not unheard of. And actually, it's very much not unheard of even in Bitcoin. And I'm bringing up the idea of if we do come back below that previous all-time high again, short term, we did the same thing here, right? We pushed up to $74,000, which was the 5,000 over 69, which was our 2021 high. And we spent a hell of a lot of time down back below. Didn't crash, didn't reverse, didn't go into a bear market or anything, but then you come back through it. So, yeah, on a technical base, these would be my two big zones for the next fresh entries on anything. And like I said, if Bitcoin comes down to these two levels, it's like I wouldn't even have to look at a chart. I would just know if I had something in mind, if I wanted to buy, Ondo or whatever the case is. That's where I'd probably look to go get an entry on it. All right. If I ever use leverage on alts, I'm Marcus. So I do occasionally use leverage on alts, but it's very low. It's maybe like 1.5 to 3. And the reason I say that is truly just for two reasons. Like, one is that altcoins they just are so much more volatile, in the sense of like they can whip 10%. Basically, if Bitcoin catches, what's the old saying? If Bitcoin sneezes, the altcoins catch a cold, type of thing, right? So if Bitcoin just drops 3% out of nowhere, or not even out of nowhere, but just normally, your altcoin could drop 10 and bounce right back up. Like if you have a leverage play on that, unless you're playing the game, I don't like to go on liquidation. I don't like to just say, all right, I'm going to buy in, DOT. This was my buy zone, for example. All right, and we sat in here, boom, 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 forever. If I were to come in here with leverage on one of these, tries, this was 10%, right? A 10% drawdown right there. So if you have, a 10x, that's a liquidation right there. If you have an actual stop loss strategy, if you have 2x, 3x, and you're looking for what are you going to put? 30% stop loss? I mean, you could, I guess, but even then, probably still would have got stopped out. I just feel like you don't need it. And especially if we get into an environment where the altcoins really move. I mean, we're seeing it now. I mean, look at Dogecoin. I mean, would it be great to catch Doge at the exact low and run it, 300% on 20x leverage? For sure. But you're probably going to get stopped out of that. And on top of that, you're probably going to lose sleep over it. And and that's just not the real point of leverage. Like, so the thing I always kind of say with leverage is not, it's a tool. It's not like a necessity, right? So for me, I use leverage this way. I have my spot bags, which I've mentioned once again, like packed and chilling. That's the majority of my capital, right? And that's not sitting on a Chinese exchange or an foreign exchange that has no KYC, no FDIC. There's nothing of size, like real size, out there on those, right? I have everything set aside through things like Coinbase and then hardware wallets and things like that. But while I'm waiting on these moves to unfold, maybe that's 6 months, maybe it's a year, right? Some of the, depending on how the outcome is, I'm looking for these short-term trades. And as a day trader, if I was trading stocks, or the average trader in stock market, right, you need at least a $25,000 account to trade stocks. If you're going to try to trade something like that in crypto, in my opinion, I prefer not to keep 25 grand on an exchange. So what I do is I would put 2,000. Really, I'll put five. I send 5,000 over to whatever exchange, and two reasons on that is that I can take trades at $2,000 increments on 20x, and that's generally, if you ever see a 20x leverage position from me, it's usually $2,000 to $3,000 at max. All right, so that's a 40 to 60 $1,000 position is how I treat it. All right, and then so if I have my $5,000 on there, if that exchange goes tits up, I'm out 5 grand. That sucks, but it's not anything like FTX, right? And then B, I got 5Gs. I see an amazing opportunity. Like if I have one of my best setups, I'm throwing, and usually it's Bitcoin and ETH for the short-term plays. I'll go there. I'll throw 2,000 on 20x. I put a 1 to 1.5% stop loss, so I'm risking $400, maybe $600, for the trade. Generally, I'm targeting 3 to 5% minimum. So you're talking about having just about 100% increase of the $2,000, but still only a 3% move. I treat it as a $60,000 trade that I'm looking to make 3% on, not as $2,000 that I'm looking to 10x. Because anybody that does that is going to do one of two things. You're going to take your whole amount. So somebody's going to take $1,000 and go to something and put their whole amount on there, and 10x. Maybe they'll put a stop loss, whatever. But if they lose, now they got $800, and then guess what they're going to do? Now they're going to go to something else or retrade it again, revenge trade it, and they're going to up the leverage because now you have to make back 1.5 times what you already put in just to get back to break even, and then you want to make more, and then you're going to up the leverage again, and that's how you get liquidated, right? Long rant there, but anyways, yeah, I don't use leverage for altcoins to answer your question. And if I do, like I said, it's like opportune areas, and maybe I'll throw a 2x on it or 3x or something. And once again, I just like to not have to lose sleep dominance really quickly. And then the ETH dominant, or the ETH BTC chart, right? So this is a setup that I've put on here, Marcus, quite a while ago. And I'll zoom out so you can see the whole chart here. I think you can see it pretty well. Okay. We've just been kind of stair-stepping our way up into these regions, and this area up here, which you could say, I'm not trying to get, say this is exact or has to be exact and what have you, but from these areas down below us, this has remained the region that I've been looking for to see a potential reversal, and it's 62% to about 64%. But we're at, we've pierced 60 already. Maybe that's where we end up rolling over. Regardless, when this chart truly rolls over, that is when we'll most likely have a really sizable Bitcoin rally. And I've always kind of targeted it to be, not always, I guess, but for me, it kind of aligns with, December to January beginning, through the summer. And what I mean by beginning, obviously we've had some big moves already. And that's pretty normal, but if you're not familiar with how these this altcoin seasons truly go, they're pretty wild, and it's one of those things where it's you just got to go through it to even put it out there, right? Like, so it's been so long, and when I say that, it's only been a year really, because this time last year, 2023, at October Q4, we had the same deal, right? You had a huge altcoin season from basically November to March, really May. So I guess I would almost say that the same thing could be said again this year. Um, and that all really stems from Bitcoin rolling over, right? And let me just see what December, November. All right, so right here was November of last year, and a 8% pullback in dominance, essentially, basically shot off this huge altcoin rally. Um, so that really wouldn't be a huge thing to see here, right? And we've had a huge move up. You're coming into key levels. You're coming into key resistance. I build this the same way I build anything else. Could this continue up? It sure can. So I mean, it is an area where it's no guarantee, and if we flip it, then unfortunately we'll probably be looking at like 70%. But otherwise, things line up pretty well, right? Where we see this region just above us, we'll see if we get the reversal. It aligns well with my ETH BTC chart, which I've also been targeting, a major reversal around the same time, right? So, and utilizing more so, this is once again not a guarantee, and this is just kind of like a guide or like a little confluence builder that I put together. I'm not married to this. But if this does complete in this fashion, sets up a really nice move here. And you got a pretty big key level, just a bit below us. Now this probably would mean, a little bit more downside in ETH versus BTC, which means obviously in the short term we get a pullback probably in the alts. To me, this kind of lines up more so with the idea where, Bitcoin gets that pullback, maybe Ethereum pushes up into that 3,800. Triggers that bat. Get this push up into this region. This pattern potentially completes. You get this pullback either to one of these two areas. That would probably not be well for the altcoin short term. Potentially we drop that ETH versus BTC down just a little bit more, right? And then this is where once again fresh entries. If I'm looking for fresh entries, which you may not get, and just once again point out over the last year, the big ones for me were 2,100. From the 4K high, which targeted, talked about, put out every, and once again, I'm not trying to take a victory lap on that by any means. It was something that I ended up managing well. So it was good. I took the opportunity. I put the risk on at low prices in the fear. We're not there anymore, right? So, but now anybody that did collect, in these lower areas, they're not sweating. So anybody that is sweating, you got to work at finding an entry, right? So. Just the same way anybody else had to work at finding the entries down here. It's just a little more tougher in the FOMO season, I think. But yeah, so in theory, looking for that push up. If you get that rejection right there, I think that aligns with the ETH to BTC chart, right? To pull back just a little bit more. Doesn't have to, but I definitely think that this like 3-1 and potentially down, it's a really big drop, so I don't know if we'll get this whole thing out, and realistically this would be valid here. This pattern doesn't even have to complete. It's just something that we've been tracking for this whole year when we were trading all the way back up here, and so far it's been playing out. And then we'll see if we get a pretty big run up here, and then once again reversal on this chart. This moves to the upside. That's altcoin season, along with dominance dropping. Like that's what you want to see. I just still time wise looking at like things like Fibonacci time. I've lined this up for whether or not it ends up being where we reverse from. So the next time pivot is the first week of December. So going back to the original comment where the last week of November, somebody had mentioned, Ariel, that they said that, somebody said somewhere that the last week of November is usually red, right? So I'm just kind of going off of adding some confluence for, we might see it like that because you might get that last week of November, first week of December. That time period, living it out was, it felt like forever. This was, 2022, 2020, almost 2 years. And then now you get these moves like in days. Gotta love crypto, man. Cardano, another, and Dogecoin too, right? These are like the Dino coins. Came up, tagged one of our targets. Not a terrible pump, as far as like 100%. Probably something I wouldn't chase either, right? At the moment. So I pointed out Cardano pretty heavily at these regions. One of the things I try to do the most in the Discord specifically is point out where, you know, what is at key regions, or at least something that's maybe not popped, you know, something that's trading at the lows while everything else is exploding. And sometimes that doesn't play out the best, because sometimes honestly, like when like Doge, for example, right, something that's pumped 300%, it might pump another 100% while other coins don't do anything. But it's, you know, there's also many times where that 300% one turns around real quick, and then the other ones that hadn't popped yet pop off 40-50% like it's nothing. So for here, Cardano probably look to, you know, hold that 50 cents and go from there. Otherwise, anybody that got in down here, you know, you're chilling. You know, you don't have to worry about it. Your bags are packed. You're relaxing. Even if you pull back to all the way to here, you're still in profit, and that'd be a nice higher low. Be looking to continue. Honestly, I'm looking back to these regions for Cardano over the next, doesn't mean weeks, months, but over the coming in time. $1.40, $2.11. All right, folks, we've been going at it for 1 hour. Appreciate you all for tuning in, hitting the likes. Hopefully you're subscribed. Try to do a couple more of these, maybe not so late, but I was waiting till a couple of the creators kind of popped off, and I was enjoying their content as well, giving them some love, all the good stuff. But yeah, if anybody's interested in getting, you know, obviously these updates a little bit more quicker in live time, feel free to check out the Discord. Link is in the bio. 2 weeks for free. So if you do not enjoy, you can cancel it before you get charged. Otherwise, but some of the big ones I've pointed out recently, I think, was 1 inch. 1 inch is a good example, actually. 1 inch is pretty much at the lows. Obviously, it's not literally at the lows, and it's had a pump, you know, 30-40%, kind of like anything else. So you may, if you're walking in right now, obviously, you know, you might get a little pullback here. But I think that 1 inch 1 inch sushi, crypto.com, obviously already getting a run. But this is an example of something that, like, I'd look for, and I posted pretty heavily. I actually picked some of this up down here just the other day. We were targeting these, you know, levels here. But yeah, I mean, this is, even if we flip this region, you're talking a 300% move, and that's not even back to all-time high. I think that's a pretty conservative play over the next weeks to months. Only thing is, like I said, you just got to be willing to acknowledge at this exact moment you're right into resistance, because we're hitting a key level. But if we flip that, looking for 45 cents, which that's a 50% move right there. Flip this majorly quarterly level, and I think it's off to the races, right? You can see all this. I mean, just simple support resistance right there, but on top of that, it is a pretty big key level. So really good example of, yeah, like the updates I'd give for one, and then, yes, the things that I'll be looking for along the way. I figured you meant like a 10x or something. I don't love to, like, get too far into the weeds on, you know, throwing out 10x's and 100x's and 50x's and all that, but, you know, as far as in the idea of keeping your head neutral, there are several. One for me that I think is a pretty decent one, and it's already getting a little push up here, but it would be Gala Games. I think that, what are we at here? Well, 3 cents now. The other day we were just down here. But yeah, the one big target, not even back to the all-time high, is right there, 32, 33 cents. You're not even at 3 cents yet, so obviously that's a 10, 12x here, and it won't be overnight by any means, but and ideally, you know, you pick it up a little bit lower, but if you can stomach and deal with a couple of shenanigans, depending on if Bitcoin pulls back, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, Gala to me is a 10x move. I've got others, I just don't know them off top. And like I said, there may be a ton of 10x movers. For me, this one has been a really clean setup for a while that I've been accumulating pretty heavy. VeChain is another one, oddly enough, an older coin. Let's just take a look at VeChain real quick before we flip off. I think that the newer coins, something like Ondo, Sui, Say, you know, they probably all have 10x potentials. But like I said, you just can't necessarily get married to that. You really have to build the context and kind of really pay attention to how things are progressing with Bitcoin and what timing it's just one of those things. We just have to manage it as we go. But at the moment, yeah, I see those ones. What did I just say? VeChain. Let me just pull that up really quickly. Damn, VeChain's finally getting a pop. But yeah, same thing with VeChain, right? So I mean, I haven't changed this chart in forever. We were actually trading here when I put the main update with this nice yellow line. But the buy zone was this, and it was pretty wide, obviously, but for good reason. This is once again kind of answering Marcus's question on the leverage. You know, I didn't come into VeChain with leverage. I was looking to just kind of come in at mid to long term buy. When we were looking at Dogecoin just a bit ago, you saw that 2 years of sideways action, and then you get those quick moves, and now everybody wants in. Well, things like VeChain right now, things like Gala, things like 1 inch, you know, they're putting in those very slow time frames where they might still get 20% pullbacks and whatever, but you just got to be able to stomach that. I mean, you know, in investing, you're going to be underwater at some point, potentially. Once again, I'm speaking on my own behalf. Do what's best for you. But picking up VeChain in these regions and targeting these levels here, let's just see, even from where we are now. I'm sorry, maybe that's not a 10x. That's a 3-4x. I misspoke. But yeah, there's probably a bunch. But Gala Games, top of my head, is the best risk to reward, I guess, in this moment. You know, it's a gaming token. I'm sure there'll be some AI jargon wrapped around it, and it's at the lows. So, or at least it was up until now. But yeah. Filecoin, just since you asked, and then we'll finish this up. Jesus. I actually haven't updated this in a long time, so I'll actually update this in the group with more cleaner look. But I mean, really, just from a quick glance, that's old. These are all old. Let's just throw it on. All right, so nice and simple range here. So I'll throw this in the same category I'd consider like theta. And we'll take a really quick look at theta before I flip off, just to kind of show an example though. But you got a big range here on Filecoin. So something similar to the one I just showed, where it's in, you know, it's got a push. It's up 40%, just like the other one I just showed a second ago. So, I mean, it is up. It's hard to come into something that's up 40%. But for me, I'd rather come into this, you know, still towards the lows. Once again, probably look for an entry, or if you want to just jump into it, you know, for me personally, I'd look to maybe scale in now. And if you get that pullback, kind of go in that way too. So I got skin in the game in case it just takes off on me. And then otherwise, I'll just kind of average down a little bit for the mid to long-term play. But ranging at the low, currently at the point of control. So this is the main area of volume, right? So think of that as just a really big, it's not a moving average, but I just refer to it like that to just make it simple for most people to understand, because I know everybody's usually used to hearing like moving averages and whatever. Anyways, yeah, I would still target pretty nicely, at least back up to this region, and that's not even all-time high, right? And that's just the next steps here. And then we, you know, once again come back and reevaluate. Like I said, I'll probably update this and throw it in the group tonight. And maybe not, if it's not tonight, first thing in the morning. And then, yeah, I mean, that's a sizable move to 200%. But like I said, is this the best time to get in? You know, it's not the best, and there's always a better entry, of course. But yeah, that's just kind of the risk you got to take, right? So that's what I'd be looking for on Filecoin. And I would imagine if we get something like that, it's probably going to be a sizable, quick move, just because of the consolidation at this point. And I'll just show you what I mean by that with theta. All right, so theta had this huge range. I think I ended up pulling it a little bit further, but regardless, we had this huge range we were trading in at the time, and we finally got that break. It was a huge move right up and right through the gold pocket. So it just kind of reminded me of that. So I think I adjusted this after the fact, but yeah. That's a pretty big move, pretty decent retracement there, right? 80%, right to the key levels. All right. I'm going to update the live stream for you, I promise. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Hope you all have a great day, and let's see if we get this $100,000 Bitcoin or not. Till next time, everybody. Cheers.